Hello and welcome to week 8 of the Bill Neese's Coaches Show. I'm your host, Chip Hare. With us is, of course, the star of the show, Coach Bill Neese. And Coach, before we get into much, last road win or last road game of the year turned into a nice road win. Put 5 in a row on the board for the Indians, 36-26 prevail over Butler and a team that was pretty good, and also to finish out the regular season road season win for us.
I think it
was good.
The big thing about Butler is we hadn't beat them in a couple of years, and so I think it was important. And every one of those games has been decided by a touchdown. And the last time we were there, we had a touchdown lead going into the fourth quarter, and it was a very rare occurrence for the Indians to blow a lead in the fourth quarter, and we did. We had 2 turnovers, and came back last year in a pouring rainstorm, had a kickoff return, and that's really the only thing that anybody could do from that point on in the game. So we really came into this past week wanting to get a win over there, wanting to play good, and I think we did a great job. I was really pleased with our offensive line. I thought they did very well with the different fronts that Vandalia and Butler mixed. I was also pleased with our defensive secondary, because if you were down on the field, I don't know that I've seen 3 more impressive receivers than what Vandalia Butler had, and their quarterback was pretty accurate quarterback. So they had a pretty dynamic passing game, and we were fortunate that we kept them out of the end zone, except for at the very end, when the game had already been decided. But I thought our defensive secondary played pretty well.
They had, what I understand, 2 Division I wide receivers. One had just recently committed to a school in the MAC. They're a very dangerous team and a scary team.
Yeah. And they had a couple of mismatches out there, and our guys battled, and we just kept everything in front of us. And we had 2 or 3 really good solo open field tackles, and Dylan Cole, our safety, did a great job of staying in the middle and funneling things and running the alleys and giving help whenever he could. So I thought we had Hunter Hawk and we had Bushy back there, Bushnell, and those 2 guys. And then Hunter went out, and if you remember the second half, we had to have Kayla Patent come in, so we actually were able to accomplish that with a backup who's not bad, though, I will say. He probably should be playing back there a little more than he should, or than he does. But I think overall we played pretty well.
Well, we talked about Kayla Patent last week. He was on the show, and you were talking about, hey, here's a guy that, hey, anytime you call him and you need him, whatever you say, Coach, and boy, you come in and didn't miss a beat.
He did not. He knew the game plan. He knew everything ready to go, and he was able to get in there and help us.
Offensively, really, right from the get-go, we really kind of set the tempo with continuing what we have been doing the last few weeks. Offensively, we really kind of made them make some adjustments. Some people had made some comments, well, hey, you had a chance to get inside that red zone. We couldn't score in that last quarter. Yeah. That being said about Butler, they were playing for their playoff lives. They really were playing for something, and they really did not quit. And it goes back to what you said. We've had really a good series with them the last few years.
Oh yeah, and that series, we were a little disappointed with that series right before the half. We thought we should have done something, and then it multiplied when we came out of the locker room and won 1-2-3 punt. So it was kind of anybody's ball game at that point. And then I think when their punter put the knee on the ground and made a special teams error. And 2 years ago, we lost the game. When I said turnovers, we lost the game with a special teams error. And I think when he did that, that kind of gave us some momentum.
Oh, and we kept it moving, rightfully so. Indians, we move improved to 6-2, and we are 3-0 in the division. Keeping that concept of 1 game at a time. Here we move into week 9, and we get the last. We get a couple games here at home. First home game that we got to take care of is Tipp City. A lot to play for here. There's a lot of things that we can discuss about. Tipp City's new in our division. Certainly not new to knowing the Indians, that we have played them in a return game at what will be a rematch from last year's playoff game. Some new characters, but a lot of the same kind of offenses, same coach coming back. Coach, I'm just going to say, hey, big game, and you take it from there.
Okay. Well, it is. It's a massive game for us. It's obviously, as we say, it's the biggest game we have this week. And I think, Tipp City is a formidable opponent. They come in, and they've got a good program now. It's not a team, it's a program, meaning that they, year in, year out, bring different kids in, but all of a sudden they look the same. And people said that about us a lot, that you just bring in new kids, you mold them into your program, and you do what you do. And I think that's what they do offensively and defensively. They have a great scheme on both sides of the ball, and they don't make mistakes on special teams. And that formula is always going to be a successful formula in high school football. And I think this year, is no exception. They throw the ball when they need to. You say, well, that they're a wing T team. They don't throw the ball as much. They throw the ball at 62% accuracy, meaning that 62% of the time they're completing their balls. And no one in high school football does that. Everybody's running around 50. We played a couple teams this year. The quarterback accuracy was down in the 30s. So 62% means that they know when they're going to throw it, and they have 2 or 3 passes that they know they can complete. They can get it done. So we've got our hands full looking into this situation. Everybody's on DEFCON 1 here, and we've been getting after it all week, working at it, putting a little extra in this week.
6-2 Indians taking on 6-2 Tipp City, and we've got to mention Tipp City has had to come from behind a couple games. They have a no-quit attitude. They had to come back from against Fairborn, in which in the fourth quarter they had to make a couple scores behind. Same thing in the situation with Sydney, couple scores behind, coming back and making a win on their end. So we're talking about a team that is very confident in who they are, and a team that believes in what their system's about.
Yeah, and anytime, good luck follows teams. Good luck follows hardworking, good teams. And I think in their case, they were, able to pull off a couple wins. I know the Fairborn game, we watched film in the Fairborn game, and that was a 45-44 game. And like you said, this past week against Greenville, it was pretty close. They were down at one point in a couple games. So it's someone that we know until there's a bunch of zeros on that clock, we're not sure what's going to be happening.
New opponent for Piqua in the GWalk North. From your perspective, obviously you've got a lot of film on them from this year. They're unlike Butler, they're unlike Greenville, they're unlike Sydney in the past, where you have 10 years to kind of go on in history. We don't have that with them. Obviously, we played them once last year in a playoff game. How does that work for you in terms of your preparations?
I think we just kind of had to go a little bit back. In the past, there was a point in my coaching career where there was 3 and 4 teams that were that type of team, a wing T team, and every wing T team has a different flavor, a different version. But at one point, Sydney was wing T. At one point, Troy was wing T. At one point, we played St. Mary's, and those are all 3 great wing T programs. So I think we were able to get a little bit. As a matter of fact, we watched a little film tonight just on a couple of our teams from the 90s and how they played the wing T and some of the things that they were doing. So you play back on that, and then also we had a lot of film from last year, and we had a lot of film from this year. So you just kind of keep looking at it and keep building on it.
Would be remiss if we didn't talk about it, because there are a lot of people talking about it outside this locker room, and I think one thing that you talk about is what we talk about inside this locker room. But the fact is that both of us are in a position where we're right neck and neck in the playoff hunt for one another. We are. You said last week in last week's coach's show, I'm not sure next week, maybe the week we talk about playoffs, maybe it isn't, maybe it is. Is that something that you've had a conversation with your team at all, or are we still?
Actually, we have not. I mean, surprisingly, I know my past has always been, we're talking playoffs in the second game of the season, and I think this year we're at the point where we know what we have. It's obvious. In the past, sometimes I just sit down and say, okay, now if we win this game and these 3 people lose and this and this and this, this is going to happen. And you use it as a motivator, you just keep it going. Okay, we don't need any carrot on a stick. We know what's there. Everybody knows what's there, and we're sitting right there at 10th. They're sitting at 9th, and the answer is obvious.
We go into looking at this, and the fact that also it's a big week is it's senior night. Our seniors get recognized. It's an opportunity for our kids to, and we'll talk more about week 10 next week. But there's a lot of distractions, potential distractions on senior night. I think our guys are ready to go, and talking to them in the locker room today, I think for them, they are really taking that one game at a time motto and not looking ahead.
Oh, they are. They definitely are. I know a couple of newspaper guys said something to a couple of our players last week, and they jumped in on it right away and said it's 1 week at a time. And it really is. And you just have to do it that way. You have to do it that way because on any given week, you sit and look at these games on Saturday, and you see these upsets, you see these unusual things happen, and you just say to yourself, I don't want to be in that position. Be prepared, and then do your job.
But Coach, let's be honest, and I think this is what talk about this maturity of the team. We can always say, let's take one game at a time, and we can tell that to our team. But you have some people, not us, but there are people out there that don't. They say it, but they don't live it. This team lives it, and not just in this locker room, but in the hallways. I don't hear kids talking. I haven't heard one kid last week when we were playing Butler talk about Tipp City. I haven't heard one person inside the program talk about what's coming down the road.
No.
It's where we are here, and it's just some people just talk the talk, but they're really walking.
Yeah, they are. And unless you actually do it, and then there's a lot of people that think we're full of crap, and no, there's no reason, there's no way somebody does that. But unless you're in it, unless you realize that you have to go on a week-to-week basis, and you realize that you have a lifespan of 7 days, then you can't really fathom what we're talking about.
Well, and also too, I think it speaks to the leadership of your seniors. But also, I think the leadership of some juniors, some people that recognize, hey, we've got people that, like Hunter Hawk, comes in and gets hurt. Kayla Patent, understanding what that role is and being able to step in and take it from there. And we can talk about other examples of those people, but that is living in the moment, and I think that's playing in the moment.
Definitely. We've got great leadership. You're right, great leadership in senior class. And this is one of the years. It's also good that we have good junior leaders. We have 2 or 3 guys in there that are really good junior leaders, and that's important, I think, and to have that class represented. And also, what it does is it merges those classes together. And anytime your junior and senior class is merging, I think that's better. I don't like sometimes that it's a senior class and then everyone else. I like the trickle in of that junior and senior class together. I think that's a little bit more important, and we have that this year.
Well, as in coaching, and as a former coach, and obviously you've been it. You talked last week. Sometimes you have to use the example of playoffs as a motivator, and every team is different. This team of the last few years that I have seen is different than some of the others. Not that the others weren't good, and they certainly weren't. We did have good leaders, but there's a blend of chemistry between the senior class and the junior class, and even some of the sophomores that I didn't see. It was like the senior class sometimes before the junior class and the sophomores. This one, there's some true synergy there.
Yeah, there definitely is. And I tease these guys sometimes and say, well, I think we have a lot of team chemistry because nobody really does anything. I mean, usually the seniors, they're going planning this and everybody's planning stuff. These guys don't do a whole lot. They're just kind of, they come and go to football and then they hang around with each other and just sit around. So I think that's kind of good sometimes, that you're just, back relaxing and just living the football life.
Well, a good person that exudes that example is our senior feature player this week, and that's Mr. Nate Monnin. He is just goes with the flow and does what he's supposed to do. He shows in, checks in, puts his hard hat on, does his job, and he leaves, and he's able to leave everything on the field. He's a guy that really has been a big part of our success, not just this year, but as just a program in general.
Yeah. And it's great that Nate's already got his college mapped out for him. He's going to go to Kent State. They love him up there. As soon as they saw him, they offered him immediately, and I think that's outstanding. And he has probably played. He's probably played with more pain in his 3 years as anybody. He ended up with a torn labrum. He's got another labrum issue on this side. He goes on a week-to-week basis. He's had a couple cortisone shots and those things to try to help the inflammation, but he just continues to come out and play. And every week he comes in on Monday, can barely move, and by Friday feels great. And then he goes out and plays and then starts it over again. So he's kind of like that 7-day cycle guy. He's an outstanding player on and off the field.
Well, and he's one of those guys that he doesn't complain. He does not ask for special favors. He does his job, and when he gets done playing, he's a good role model for many of our young people out in the community. He's a young man that has great success, not just in football, but also basketball, and is a very good student.
Oh yeah. He's everybody knows Nate, and he's very, very well grounded. Good kid.
Coach, as we move into this final week here, or excuse me, I should say, this final 2 weeks, and we're working on senior night. For us, game plan wise, what are the Indians looking to do in terms of what are some keys to Friday night for us to play well?
Well, I think we got to eliminate the big play on on defense. I think we have to make sure that we don't make mistakes and allow, a big gash. I think offensively we've got to just continue to finish, and sometimes we've got to be a little patient because they do blitz a little bit and they're going to catch us 1 or 2 times. But I think if we can just learn to finish, get down inside that 10-yard line, and get it done, and it wouldn't hurt for our offense, with our passing game, which is developing every week to get better. It would not hurt for us to be able to get a big play with our passing game, and that's something that I hope we can be able to do in these next couple of weeks, and hopefully, if we get a chance in Week 11.
Well, certainly Week 9 comes first, and they'll be here. The Indians will kick off at 7 o'clock senior night against the Tipp City Red Devils, and the first time we'll actually meet in a GWalk North Division game. We're going to come back for the second half of the Bill and East Coaches Show. We're going to talk to Nate Monnin, and we're going to talk a little bit about his injuries, his challenges, but how he has been able to keep a smile on that face this whole time. We'll be right back. Welcome to the second half of the Bill and East Coaches Show. With us right now is tight end and defensive end, senior Nate Monnin. Nate, thanks for joining us today here on the Bill and East Coaches Show.
Thanks for having me.
Nate, this is your senior year, and so much has happened so far in your senior year on a personal level. We'll talk about the team here in a little bit, but let's kind of walk through the fans here a little bit about the last year for you. Football season and basketball season have good individual years for you on a personal level. Basketball season ends, and probably what was the best season we had since the 90s, late 90s, 2007. And here we go, we had to have surgery.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that surgery, because since then you really kind of been on a different path than everybody else.
Well, I had surgery right after basketball. And on my labrum on my shoulder.
Okay.
And
that's not a surgery that you just recover from overnight. That takes some time to get through. That takes about 4 to 5, 6 months.
Yeah, 4.5 months.
Depending on how bad the injury is. So about 4.5 months, is that right?
Yeah, and I'm still recovering with my strength.
So 4.5 months of that, you have to go, not allowed to participate with weightlifting. You're not allowed to participate with any kind of drill work. You're out of commission, so to speak, until August 1st. Wasn't that about the time you got cleared?
Yeah. They let me run like a month before that, but other than that, I just sit around and.
So from March to August 1, you'd say, well, that's not a long time. But when you're a young man of 17 years old and you're wanting to get active and participate as much as you do, that was tough 6 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, couldn't play any summer basketball, no 7-on-7s for football, nothing.
Pretty tough. So August 1 comes and you get yourself back and ready to go, and season's going along pretty well. You're getting yourself back into shape.
Yeah.
And then we ran into another snag in a scrimmage, didn't we?
Yeah, I found out I tore my other labrum last year, but it just retore.
So we have 2 torn labrums. So you have bad shoulders. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I have a fixed one that needs
repair.
A little repair.
Now, some people would say, well, that seems a little strange. You've been playing, and that the reason is you can play with torn labrums. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it's just you got to deal with the pain.
How much pain are you in?
It just depends.
Is
whether it
football
gets
harder
banged
to play
up.
than basketball with that, or what?
Yeah, basketball you don't get banged up as much because you hit every play in football.
Yeah. Well, you certainly can't tell you're in pain. You've been playing very well. The Indians have certainly been on a streak. We're on a 5-game win streak as we go into this week against Tipp City. And talk a little bit about just where we are as a team right now. I mean, here we're 6-2. At one time we were 1-2. Things were looking a little bleak, and now we put 5 together straight, and we're looking at the last 2 games at home. Senior night on Friday night, a big game against the team we'll talk about next week. But a lot going on, a lot of exciting things. Things are looking up for the Indians.
It is.
All right now. All right. Talk a
I
little
did
bit about
it.
how they're looking. How are things looking up for the Indians from your perspective? How have things been different the last few weeks?
Well, we've been winning first off.
That helps.
And I don't know, we've just been playing with more toughness. we've been getting out and getting it.
When we look at this week, there's a lot of things that we can talk about what this game means, but this game, and I would like to parlay it into maybe one of the highlights that you remember from last year. But what are some of the highlights that you had personally on your level that you'd like to talk about of what you remember about being a Piqua Indian?
Well, this year we took over the battered helmet with Sydney. That was the TV game, one on national television, and
maybe local television.
Maybe local, yeah. And then us seniors, we beat Troy every year in high school. So hopefully we can make it 5, or yeah, hopefully we can make it 5. And
last year I think we made
playoffs last year.
Yeah, and we played a team called Tipp City, and we got them again this Friday night.
And it's senior night.
And it's senior night. There's a lot to be.
So we got to get it.
A lot to play for. When we talk about next year, and you know, Nate, you've been a big valuable piece, and we talk about basketball. Obviously, you've been very successful in basketball. But a year from now, where are you going to be? And tell a little bit about Piqua, about what exciting news you've come into here in the past several months.
Well, I've gotten a couple offers, and I committed to Kent State.
Yeah, we're going to play.
Play football, yeah.
Congratulations.
Tight end.
So, what does that mean for you? How exciting is that you know, would you ever guess 4 years ago you're going to be playing college football at a Division I school, playing football?
Well, that's always been my dream, to either go to the NBA or the NFL. So I never thought it'd really happen, but that was always my dream.
Yeah, well, good. You work hard, and you certainly is well deserved. And we're rooting for you Friday night, and obviously the rest of the season too. And we certainly hope that your shoulder gets back to normal after the season. You going to plan on doing some surgery after basketball?
Yeah, right after basketball.
Okay.
Hopefully we make it far in the playoffs.
Well, we sure hope so too. And Nate, thanks for joining us here on the Bill Neese's Coaches Show.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck to you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget Friday night, Piqua will host Tipp City here at Alexander Stadium with a 7 o'clock kickoff. It is senior night, so you want to get out early so you can see all the seniors here and get their recognition prior to the game. Also, as we move into it, next week will be week 10. We'll talk more about that at the next show. But for Nate, Monnin, I'm your host, Chip Hare. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you Friday night.